I'm quoting here from an article on telegraph.co.uk. The headline is exclusive. UFC want Anthony Joshua to sign multi-fight contract which could net him in excess of £350 million. It's by Gareth A. Davis. I'll continue into the body of the text. The Ultimate Fighting Championship is making an audacious bid to sign a promotional multi-fight deal with Anthony Joshua, which could earn the Londoner $500 million, £353 million, and make him the richest British boxer of all time. Joshua has become boxing's biggest star, and the Daily Telegraph understands Dana White, the UFC president, will attend his title fight with Joseph Parker in Cardiff on Saturday week and plans to meet with the 28-year-old and his team. Very, very, very interesting stuff. Let's talk about this. I have seen an interview, I believe it was with Seconds Out, the YouTube channel, where Eddie Hearn reacted to this news, and it seemed that people were interested in hearing people discuss it, so I thought, why not throw in my take on this? The first thought that comes into my mind is that AJ will never do UFC, and I'll tell you why. AJ's extremely successful at boxing. He is already a unified heavyweight champion of the world. He's enjoying global fame. He's already a millionaire many, 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 many times over, and he has a very, very rich earning potential ahead of him in a field with which he excels. Given that, is he going to gamble to go into a discipline that may completely not suit him? Now, don't get me wrong. AJ is a fantastic athlete. He's a fantastic physical specimen. He clearly punches very, very hard. AJ wearing those little 4-ounce UFC gloves, etc. If he was to hit someone on the chin, clearly, it could do a hell of a lot of damage. I'm not saying AJ could never do another combat sport. Also, I'm a little bit unclear as whether the UFC would maybe want to sign him as a boxer and try and promote his boxing career as opposed to just converting him into an MMA star. But my whole point is that AJ's career at the minute is on a very, very positive trajectory. Let's be honest. Moving to somewhere else, moving to a new platform, moving to a new organisation in any form would be such a substantial gamble. Really, the question for me is, why on earth would he gamble that, given the fantastic position that he's in? Would he really want to, throw his current position away in order to move to ground that is so untested? Now, I'm trying to read another article as we're talking on The Sun to try and get a take as to whether or not they're talking about Joshua doing MMA for the UFC, or whether they're talking more about the UFC as an organisation taking ownership of Joshua and promoting his boxing career. But I suspect they're talking about him doing MMA. I mean, we saw recently I think it was in The Gloves Are Off, when Dillian Whyte and Lucas Browne were discussing their upcoming fight. We heard Lucas Browne talk about when he fought Daniel Cormier in MMA. Now, I'm not a UFC fan, I'm not a UFC expert, I do have a very, very surface passing knowledge, and I understand Daniel Cormier is a very highly regarded MMA fighter with a real strong wrestling background. And Lucas Browne basically admitted that Daniel Cormier beat the brakes off him when they fought, because Cormier was able to take him down, Cormier was able to wrestle and grapple, and Lucas Browne had no answer to that. Now, if the suggestion is that Anthony Joshua could potentially cross over to MMA, could he win a few MMA fights? Absolutely. Would he be more likely to exceed at MMA than the average man based on his characteristics, experience and attributes? Absolutely. But at the very, very top of MMA, would Joshua, at this late stage, in his late 20s, would he be able to have a wrestling and a ground and a grappling game at the same level as Olympic style wrestlers who'd maybe been doing it since they were children, or jiu-jitsu? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It would end in disaster. just like Lucas Brown got easily beaten by a guy like Daniel Cormier, just like James Toney got easily beaten by a guy like Randy Couture. At the top level, some elite wrestler, elite jiu-jitsu technician would simply take AJ down, not risk trading with him, and why on earth would AJ want to put himself in that position, given what strong spout he's in now? Now, this £350 million, clearly it sounds like a lot of money, $500 million, but I've read in other articles that it's a 10-fight deal. I'm going to be completely honest and say that I'm not absolutely blown away by 350 million over 10 fights for Anthony Joshua. Let's be honest, Joshua is reported to have earned well over 20 million for his last fight against Carlos Takam. Now, I think we'll all agree that Takam, very decent fighter, good heavyweight yardstick, obviously entered that fight as a huge underdog against Anthony Joshua. Essentially, that was £20 million for Joshua to go into the ring against a guy who posed very limited threat to him. And whilst Takam did put up a good account in that fight and probably did better than most people expected, you couldn't really say that Takam won a single round in that fight. And Joshua was earning £20 million for that kind of fight. Joshua's earning potential is only going to grow. Clearly, he's got Parker this weekend. Unless he takes a loss, future fights will wait. A Dillian Whyte rematch, perhaps a David Haye fight, perhaps a Deontay Wilder fight, perhaps a Tyson Fury fight. These are mega money fights. My guess is that if Anthony Joshua is able to remain unbeaten, he could probably earn that £350 million over the next 10 fights without having to risk changing disciplines, without having to risk joining a new organisation and putting his future and his prospects in the hands of a group who, whilst they're a very successful combat sports group, as I understand it, do not have anything like the track record in boxing that his current setup has. So, the $350 million, the $500 million, yeah, it sounds like a lot of money, but across 10 fights, and given Joshua's current earnings and his earning potential in future years, I don't actually think is massively out of sync with what he's going to earn in boxing. So, I suspect that this is a bit of hype. I don't think it's realistic, because I actually don't think the money would be attractive enough to AJ. And I think for AJ to gamble what he's got, which is like the golden goose position in his sport, to try and do something new, which would obviously represent such a risk to him, I kind of just see it as unrealistic. Finally, let me say, and this is something Eddie Hearn touched on in his interview, I think it was with Seconds Out, and I think this is a very, very good point. We know that the difference in earnings between top-level boxers and top-level UFC stars are vast. We know what Conor McGregor earns in the UFC compared and contrasted with what Conor McGregor earned when he fought Floyd Mayweather, and we have not seen Conor McGregor return to a fight subsequent to that loss to Floyd Mayweather. And that's not a surprise to me. If you get paid X to have a boxing fight, why would you be inclined to step back in the ring, step back in the octagon for 10% of what you've earned? Surely Conor McGregor's now made so much money. Why does he want to go and get kneed and elbowed in the head again, given how financially set up he is? So I sometimes wonder if, when you get announcements like this, it kind of makes a rod for the promoters back. I remember when Eddie Hearn offered he offered Carl Frampton £1.5 million, I think it was, with the massive cheque. And I remember saying, I came on YouTube on this channel at the time, and I said, I wonder if that's going to make a rod for Eddie Hearn's back. He's making it clear he's got that amount of money to splash out on a super bantamweight fight. That's going to raise other fighters' expectations dramatically for how much they expect to earn when they're doing business with Eddie Hearn. I think it's the same for Dana White. If I was Conor McGregor looking to renegotiate my UFC terms, and I see that they're happy to offer Joshua a 10-fight deal worth $500 million, I'd be asking where my £500 million deal is, because to my knowledge, Conor McGregor certainly hasn't been earning that kind of money in past. I wonder if, despite all the hype, despite all the bluster, it was potentially a move that could backfire somewhat. But anyway, there we go. In summary, for me, it's not going to happen. Joshua doesn't need to take the risk. He's in a very safe, very comfortable position where he's the golden goose, and what's on offer is uncharted territory. It's an immense risk, and it's probably doing so for a reward that isn't dramatically out of sync with what he's probably anticipating earning in his next 10 professional outings anyway. So that's my take. For me, it's not going to happen. These stories crop up from time to time. I've heard Khan say that he'll have a go at UFC one day. I've heard Eubank say that he may consider it. I think I've heard Groves talk about it. Never going to happen. You might get a James Toney whose career is dying, and he's desperate to earn a final payday. You could see that happening. You could also see more Conor McGregor type fighters wanting to come over to boxing, but that will be because they want the money that's in the boxing sport as opposed to the money they're earning in the MMA sport. I think it's unlikely to happen the other way. There's been a lot of talk about Floyd Mayweather stepping into the octagon. Never in a million years. Floyd Mayweather could come out of retirement tomorrow. He could fight little old me. He could probably earn £100 million for it, and he could do so in a sport that he's absolutely mastered to an extent that he doesn't even end up taking too many punches in the ring. Alternatively, he could roll around with someone who's mastered jiu-jitsu, elbowing him in the face, and have no way of dealing with it. I know what I'd be choosing. Anyway, rant over. Let me know your thoughts. Am I missing something here? Could you see it happening? Give me your comments in the section below. Please hit the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed the content. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. As always, appreciate you tuning in.